mentioned previously, each one that we do is a minimum of $3,000. So we've done 2 this year, so that alone is a huge cost savings of us doing it internally. We also looking into doing responsive classroom and putting in that behavioral RTI system. We need somebody who can manage that behavior part of it. Nobody in our district right now has the training or the capacity to be able to implement something like that, and also be able to support the teachers in intervening on the different tiers, writing those plans for tiers. And again, that's a regular ed initiative, is the RTI. So this behavior specialist, how I envision it, is special ed and regular ed. And basically it's a lot of support in moving us into the right direction of having consistent behavioral expectations, consistent classroom culture from K to 12. So is that, you guys have any other questions? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking around the table on who could go next, and perhaps that would be Ms. Bankley.
So I contributed here and there, but I think I think I'm looking at the questions that haven't been addressed yet, and so why don't we start on page 14.
Thank you.
Under district-wide all administrators.
Fantastic.
And the first question was concerned the budget impact of hiring a GT teacher at the rate of 0.8 or 1 FTE, and I think Catherine supplied that data.
Yes, I did.
So it would cost an additional $42,000 roughly to hire a full-time GT teacher, and if we bumped it up to 0.8, it would be an additional $25,000. And then the next question was whether we could, and this was a great question, whether we could find anyone else in the district to fill that role. And there is a teacher in the district who has expressed interest in teaching GT at some point and has been working toward that certification. If we are going to try to acquire that minuscule subsidy from the state, we would, the person serving as our GT teacher would have to be GT certified. Moving that person over into that role, however, would mean having to hire to replace that teacher, and then you would be looking at higher class sizes. So I indicated from 19 to 23 students. So an alternative to that would be to continue with a consultant we're currently employing who could co-plan instructional units with teachers. She could provide professional development to teachers on how to differentiate for the high-ability, high-performing students. And then we also talked about hiring someone who could, it would be a stipended position, who could offer programs like Odyssey of the Mind or Destination Imagination, but programs that have been shown to particularly appeal to that GT identified student.
Just a really quick clarifier. So our district's GT plan that's been approved by the state says we're doing what? This minimal consulting support piece?
When we started this year, we had a different structure, personnel in place, and the application is due at the end of September, and so what was in our GT application was different from
Gotcha.
what emerged.
So that'll have to be
Yes,
redone.
it will.
Okay.
So then the next question was.
Do you mind if I jump in on that one for a second?
Please.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
So regarding gifted and talented, during our meeting of the administration, we met early Monday morning. Someone, just to try and prepare for this and do our best to give you the information that you needed, someone brought up a very real point, which is that there are obviously some number of children in our schools here in Cape Elizabeth that are, without a doubt, have unique talents and gifts, and they would qualify for gifted and talented anywhere. And we honestly are not doing much with that. I mean, even some of the parents whose children have qualified for gifted and talented in our community aren't really clear what they're getting from that, and others whose children didn't quite get in, aren't sure that their kids have lost anything, because no one really knows what it is that they're losing. So without a doubt, for a system K-12 of 1,600 children, there's no doubt that we are in an unusual place to not have, at the very minimum, one full-time person. Most school districts of our size have more than one per. I don't know of any that have less than one, total K-12. I mean, this is nothing that any of us take lightly, but I'm just saying that if there is interest on the part of the board of us expanding this to full-time, it wouldn't be difficult to come up with a different service model and different enrichments that we could provide children and teachers. It would not be difficult to do it all. This is in here at halftime because it's a step forward. It isn't meeting our needs, it's just a step forward. So if you say, you know what, we want to see it in there full-time, it'll be in there full-time, and there's work to be done. Short of that, we're trying to figure out what is the best model. Is it best to hire somebody part-time, or is it best to use those dollars in a different way to motivate and challenge and excite these children that have these special talents? That's what we're wrestling with.
That's why I was asking about the plan, because
Mhm.
there
Mhm.
needs to be a plan, you know, we do
Right,
need
well,
to address needs.
the plan depends on staffing.
Exactly.
Right,
Right,
Sort of a
Right.
catch.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's right.
So there's no mandatory requirements from the state other than you have to have a program, and how that program looks is
Up to the individual district.
fabulous. Okay, thank you.
So the next question was about, okay, yeah, what,
So I'm happy to speak
Yes,
about the
please
open
do.
doors. In looking at what services we're providing over the summer, and my understanding of what Open Doors started to be a couple years ago, and what it ended up being last year are two completely different programs. Excellent staff really went above and beyond for the students, coming up with projects and, making it a good program for them, but there wasn't intensive math or reading, really specialized summer school programming, which you would expect. From my understanding, again, this was a couple years ago, the Open Doors program started to be more of a professional development model for teachers to work on some of those skills over the summer with a certain population of kids, and that's not what happened last year. So our thought was, by not putting it in this year, we would see what the need is and then redevelop it for next year. But for us to put something together really quickly, not knowing what the intention was and what the needs really are, it's just not fair for the use of money. So that's where we are with the Open Doors. But ESY, as I mentioned before, is going to be expanding. So we're hoping to catch more of those kids that weren't in ESY last summer.
Thank you.
I just want to circle back to Gifted in Town, that it felt like, John, you had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'd definitely be interested in seeing a proposal that looked like it funded a full-time position of gifted and talented, because I agree with what your assessment was, and as well as what the capability and capacity in this district is, and that that's something that you can actually build excitement in your school community around, and we're not doing it.
so, I'm going to ask a question.
Please.
So are you asking that maybe sometime soon we provide the board with, if we had a full-time person, what that job would look like? And the
Yeah.
program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what is it that we are
Should you
missing
do
out
that?
on? It's
What are
like
we
you said,
missing
other
out
districts
on?
have a full-time
Yeah.
person, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of guidelines, so what does it actually look like?
So are you
what-
looking for a job description and some hope for outcomes?
Or the
Yeah,
map or program, whatever.
If we
proposal.
had something that was more resourced, what would it look like? We're not comparing it, we're comparing it to, we have this little bit, here's this little bit more.
Right.
It's not a comparison I can evaluate.
I would just say that there are almost as many models as there are districts, and that, so we could certainly, I'd be happy to put something together, but the caveat would be that I would want to wait and hire that person and see what skills, strengths they bring to it, and then build the program around that too, so.
The program proposal position proposal is in here as a full-time, and it would
Mhm.
need to be,
It would be,
Part of what I've seen in other places is that the person themselves aren't doing it all themselves. They're bringing in people and the resources in the community who have special
Right.
talents and interests to work with children as volunteers. Or getting children in apprenticeships and internships that are really pushing them intellectually. It isn't just a school program, it's really a larger, more like a community program. That's one model that I've seen work pretty well.
if it's the will of the board, it might be appropriate, as part of that discussion, to have that discussion also of, you know, adding it to the budget, absorbing it through staffing and what that means to class sizes, and actually have that discussion at another night.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I just, the last comment is, when I'm looking at a budget in general, I'm always keen to understand how is this really affecting particularly the people at the far ends of the bell curve, which is the ones who are really excelling. Are we doing anything that really helps them? Because they're gonna succeed in spite of themselves in some respect, but our job is to help them.
Right.
And accelerate them and really engage them. And the same at the other end, the ones who are really struggling. And so I wanna make sure that those pieces get attention when we look through the budget.
we used to laugh and say, got to have something in place for the severely gifted. I mean, that's that end of the bell curve you're talking about, you know, and to underserve that population is wrong too.
It's true.
Okay.
So the next couple of questions are about enrollment and staffing ratios. Who wants to speak about those?
What page are we on?
15.
Thank you.
Number 5.
Thank you so much.
I answered that question because there was a question on how the numbers came about. And what I did is I looked at our October 1st count for 2016 and moved each one a grade, because you were thinking, well, the grade 5 kids are gonna move to grade 6. So that's how those did. And I took off the senior class from this year and added 100 students for kindergarten, because over the last 7 years, our average for kindergarten actually was 99 students. I thought 100 was a reasonable amount. So that's where those figures came from. Yes, they do seem like quite a drop if you look at where we, from year to year, but it didn't pull it out of a hat. It came across, I tried to use a good basis for the figures, so that's where those figures came from.
Thank you.
If I recall, Mike was talking about the historical average of students coming in to the district at the middle school level. It was a good-sized number.
The number of new enrollments and those who have withdrawn, going back to, it's in the middle
Right.
school section. I just
Right.
looked back, just
Mhm.
for the middle school is what I had available.
And if I recall correctly, the students coming into the district at the middle school level far outweighed the withdrawals.
In the latter
did.
years,
Net gain.
we've had more of a
Net gain.
net
We have a net gain, we
increase.
do.
Right.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
had more enrollments.
So
than
is there,
withdrawals.
should we somehow take that in,
I'll take a look at
I
the
don't know.
figures and
it's
see.
a curiosity.
Yep.
Wasn't my question.
No, but
that made
that's
me
a
think
good-
of-
That's,
I'm like, Mike said something.
that's a good point. And as I was writing this up, I'm thinking, oh yeah, there is that sheet that we did about the middle school.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one. I'll look into it more to see, how they do compare.
Question 6 is about the staffing levels compared over time.
I think these are both high school.
I think Jeff
Yeah.
answered those
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
These were high school?
Yeah.
As is number 7.
Oh, interesting, because the question is about total staffing across the district.
I think the clearer we can be about those numbers and the kinds of supports we must provide kids, would help the public's understanding of why our numbers are holding still or even rising as enrollment's decreasing.
Yes.
It's a continuous
Part of that question.
refrain.
It is.
And the clearer we can be about that,
Yep.
the better.
Yep.
I think the challenge here is the lack of institutional knowledge, perhaps, of why some of those decisions have been made over time.
Right.
You know, we have 13 more positions than we did from 2009 to 2010. And yet, we're still needing more, from what I'm hearing. So, again, I know that the quick and simple answer is student teaching and learning has become much more complex. The practice of teaching has become more complex, but
The rising needs of students.
the rising needs of students, but to, on a more granular level, try and sort of unearth that might.
But
be
do we
helpful.
know what, how that divides out in terms of regular ed and special ed?
No.
Of that number of students?
great to
No,
know.
that would be great to know.
I think that if we could find that out, I'm gonna guess that, some of this, at the very least, has to do with, the complexity of meeting needs of children with special needs. I don't know that, but, I don't assume it's just more classroom teachers, a small, I don't think that we may have increased the positions because of, an effort, an intentional effort on the part of the district to provide more support and remediation for students that would benefit from that. That was intentional.
Increased
And,
social
and,
recognition.
but getting back to Barbara's point, we should point that out. We should wonder what's happened since 2009 that has led us to X number of new positions. We'll work at that. I know that for the high school, Mr. Shedd does not take lightly small class sizes. Teachers don't enjoy small class sizes. There's something that, you get to a point where actually a class can get too small. You lose the dynamics, the synergy of a larger group of students. So when there are small class sizes, there's a good reason for it, and normally, we would be talking, the two of us, and say, you know what, are we comfortable with this? And teachers are also asking those questions. No one's happy to see a class of 8 students unless it just makes sense. And so I guess I think you know this, we don't turn a blind eye to those numbers. They're taken seriously and they're thoughtful when those courses make or when they're cut. But let us get back to you with more information.
And I'm looking at question 8. It may actually have quite a bit of synergy when asking about the ed techs that are scattered throughout the budget and what they're used for. I'm sure one helps clarify the other. Okay.
I
TMI?
was gonna say, yeah, even too, just being clear about, pushing foreign language into lower grades, and the density of technology support and direct instruction we have, and social work needs. I think there's a story
Telling that
there.
story would
Yeah.
be really helpful. And it's not a story, it's
Right.
what
The
happened.
reality, telling
Right.
what education looks like today
Today.
versus
Yeah.
20 or
10
30
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah,
Or even
even 8 years ago.
8 years ago. The world has changed. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
nonfiction, not story.
Only nonfiction story.
The
We're
reality of what education looks like.
That's right.
So, other than just reiterating what's in front of us in these packets, and given the hour at 8:24, are there any other global pitches or background or any clarification that you wish that you could add at this point while we have you at the table? Or should we, again, sort of mull this information over and get back to the admin team with questions within the next 24 to 48 hours to give them time to come back to us next week?
So we'll still want to hear from Jeff, and I think
Mhm.
we'd also like to hear more from Noel.
Noel was at, if I may, Noel was at a family technology night at Pond Cove this evening, and so he was helping, and he
Sure.
sent his.
That's fine.
uh,
We can see him next
Yeah.
week.
And we did
We
have
would
some
have had
questions.
somebody every time.
Exactly. Must think it'd be 3 minutes.
And it should be noted that we have added an additional evening because we, really want to be able to give the attention and discussion to this budget problem solving and working together to get where we need to go. So we added April 4th.
Like policy meeting day. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it was a Tuesday.
It's all right.
So we have added that on,
Am I right that that meeting would begin at 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock, to
Right.
accommodate the 5th and 6th band and chorus concert, which is at the high school. So that people who would like to attend may attend, also parking can be difficult.
And with that change, as many of you are here who attend policy, I think we will just sandwich it in front of the next board meeting on the 11th. And I'm gonna see if John Holdridge can send me proposed language we'll put in for first read anyway, because it's likely to be little changed. So we'll just meet
So
ahead.
not the 5th.
Not the 5th. Let's not have another night out. Let's just put it ahead of the meeting.
Great.
Okay. All right, well, I think that might as well wrap things up for this evening. So to keep us all on schedule, we have next Tuesday, the 28th, we'll hear some more answers. We'll hear from Jeff Shedd at the high school, from Noel from technology. We'll dig into some questions around staffing over time and how things have changed. And
Talented.
and the gifted and
Gifted and
talented. Excellent. That conversation will likely also spill over onto the newly enacted date of Tuesday, April 4th at 5 o'clock in order to accommodate the middle school band concert. And then on Tuesday, April 25th, we present our budget to the town council.
We adopted first.
We do. Why don't I have that on my list? So, school vacation week, I should say, is April 17th through 21st. But in the interim, we will be meeting on Tuesday, April 11th, to talk about, finalizing our budget and adopting that as a board and voting to send that to the town council. And then on Tuesday, April 25th, we will have a town council school board workshop where we will formally present our budget to the town council. Then on Wednesday, April 26th, is the Finance Committee wrap-up for the Town Council. And they vote on all of their budget, both school and municipal budget, on Monday, April 8th. There's a Town Council vote on the school budget on Monday, May 15th.
May, yeah.
May-
15th,
May
yeah.
15th.
Yeah, that's
They have a
May.
budget hearing on the May 8th, which is just municipal. I'm so sorry. And then, of course, the most important date of all is Tuesday, June 13th, which is the regular vote for our budget citizen vote. So that about does it. Thank you. It has been a very